What if the most important battle over Canada's future air power isn't about stealth, missiles, or radar, but about an engine? Not a flashy topic. Not the kind of thing politicians put in speeches or defense companies put on posters. Yet right now, deep beneath the noise of trade wars, political tension, and defense lobbying, engine reliability is quietly becoming the deciding factor in one of the biggest military choices Canada has faced in decades. On paper, this fight looks simple. On one side is America's F-35, the most expensive and politically powerful fighter jet program in history. On the other side is Sweden's Gripen, a smaller, leaner aircraft that has never enjoyed the same level of hype or global dominance. But when Prime Minister Mark Carney ordered a review of Canada's F-35 contract in response to Donald Trump's escalating trade war, something unexpected happened. The conversation shifted. Suddenly it wasn't just about alliance politics or industrial offsets. It was about risk, control, reliability, and whether Canada wanted to tie the future of its Air Force to a system that increasingly looks fragile under pressure. This is where the engine story begins. For years, the F-35 has been sold as the future of air combat. Fifth-generation stealth, sensor fusion, network-centric warfare, a jet that can see everything, share everything, and dominate everything. But none of that matters if the aircraft can't fly. And right now, the biggest obstacle keeping F-35s on the ground isn't software or training. It's the engine. Pratt Whitney's F-135 is the sole engine powering every F-35 variant. There is no backup option, no alternative supplier, no second production line. If this engine stumbles, the entire global F-35 fleet stumbles with it. And stumble it has. In 2024, Pratt & Whitney delivered 123 F-135 engines. Every single one arrived late. Not a few, not most, all of them. The average delay was 238 days, nearly 8 months. That means completed F-35 airframes sat idle on production lines, waiting for engines that simply weren't showing up. Even worse, the contract structure allowed Pratt & Whitney to keep collecting performance incentive fees despite missing deadlines by weeks or even months. Miss your delivery date by up to 60 days? Still eligible for bonuses. That isn't a mistake, it's written into the deal. The result is a system that rewards failure and normalizes delay. Now contrast that with Sweden's approach. The Gripen's engine story doesn't begin with promises. It begins with numbers. Over 300,000 flight hours, 0 engine-caused accidents, not one catastrophic failure, not one pilot lost because the engine quit. For a single-engine fighter, that statistic isn't just impressive, it's extraordinary. Single-engine aircraft live or die by engine reliability. Lose power and there is no second engine to save you. There's only ejection or worse. So when Sweden decided to adapt General Electric's F404 engine for the Gripen, they didn't treat reliability as a bonus feature. They treated it as the mission. Volvo Aero, now part of GKN Aerospace, redesigned the engine specifically for single-engine operations. They increased thrust, simplified components, reduced weight, improved tolerance to extreme angles of attack, and most importantly, they designed it to be maintained by small crews, in harsh conditions, without massive infrastructure. The result was the RM12 engine, and its track record speaks louder than any marketing brochure. This difference in philosophy matters more than most people realize. The F-35 program was built around the idea that problems could be fixed later. Build now, upgrade later. Field the aircraft while development continues. It was supposed to save time. Instead, it created a system where delays stack on top of delays, and fixes depend on upgrades that don't exist yet. Gripen took the opposite approach. Make it work first. Make it reliable. Then add capability. That mindset is now colliding head-on with political reality. Canada is no longer operating in a stable trade environment with the United States. Trump's tariffs shattered assumptions that defense cooperation would remain insulated from economic pressure. Suddenly, dependence looks dangerous. Suddenly, control matters. And when you strip away the politics, one brutal question remains. Do you want a fighter whose engine arrives 8 months late, or one that has never failed in 300,000 hours of flight? That question doesn't just affect Canada. Ukraine is asking it too. And the answer they're leaning toward might surprise the world. But before we get there, you need to understand just how deep the F-35 engine crisis really goes. Inside the F-35 engine breakdown, the F-35's engine problem isn't a single failure, it's a system failure. On the surface, Pratt & Whitney insists the F-135 is reliable. They point to millions of flight hours and claim a 94% mission-capable rate for the engine itself. That sounds reassuring, until you understand what that number actually means. It doesn't measure whether the aircraft is ready for combat. It only measures whether the engine technically runs. A jet can have a working engine and still be grounded because it needs maintenance. Parts are delayed, or cooling systems can't handle the aircraft's electronics. And that's exactly what's happening. The F-35 was designed to grow over time. More sensors, more computing power, more electronic warfare capability. All of that generates heat. All of that demands electricity. The original F-135 simply wasn't built to handle it. That's why Pratt Whitney began developing the Engine Core Upgrade, or ECU. This upgrade is supposed to provide the additional power and cooling needed for the F-35's Block 4 configuration. The version partners were promised years ago. Originally, the ECU was supposed to cost around $10.6 billion and be ready by 2026. Now, the projected cost has ballooned to $16.5 billion. That's a $6 billion overrun, and the timeline has slipped to at least 2029, maybe later. Even that date isn't firm. At the Paris Air Show in 2025, Pratt & Whitney's own leadership refused to guarantee the schedule. Critical design review, a key milestone, slipped by a full year, and without that, production can't even begin. This creates a cascading problem. F-35s are still being built. Countries are still paying, but many of those jets are being delivered incomplete, lacking the power and cooling capacity they were designed to have. They'll need retrofits years down the line, at additional cost. The U.S. Air Force has already reacted. In 2026, it cut its F-35 purchases in half from 48 aircraft to just 24. Not because the jet is unnecessary, but because buying incomplete aircraft makes no sense. In plain terms, fewer jets that actually work are better than more jets that don't. That decision sent shockwaves through partner nations. If even the United States is slowing down purchases, what does that say about the program's health? And this is where the engine monopoly becomes a strategic liability. Pratt & Whitney is the only supplier. If production stalls, everyone waits. If upgrades slip, everyone pays. There is no competition forcing improvement, no alternative engine to switch to. The Pentagon once tried to change that. Both Pratt & Whitney and General Electric developed adaptive engines that promised better efficiency, more power, and greater reliability. The technology worked. But in 2024, the decision was made to abandon that path in favor of upgrading the existing F-135 because it was supposedly cheaper and less disruptive. Now that cheaper option is billions over budget and years late anyway. This reveals a deeper issue. The F-35's engine wasn't designed for what the aircraft became. It's derived from a conservative design philosophy focused on minimizing risk, not maximizing growth. That worked for older platforms. It doesn't work for a jet that pushes every other system to the edge. So availability rates suffer. Today, full mission capability for the F-35 remains below 40% for the A model and below 20% for the B and C variants. Engines are a major contributor. Not the only one, but a critical one. A stealth jet that can't fly isn't a deterrent, it's a liability. Now compare that with a different philosophy entirely. Why Gripen's engine philosophy changes the game. Gripen was never meant to be the biggest jet in the sky. It was meant to be the smartest tool for small nations facing big threats. That philosophy shaped everything, including the engine. The RM-12 wasn't designed for perfect hangars and endless budgets. It was designed for road bases, cold weather, limited crews, short turnaround times, situations where failure isn't an option because there is no rescue plan. That's why maintenance became as important as performance. When RM-12 engines go in for servicing, technicians don't just fix what's broken. They inspect the entire engine. They catch problems before pilots ever feel them. Preventive maintenance, not reactive repairs. That approach is why the engine's safety record remains untouched after decades of use. And it didn't stop there. The newer Gripen E uses the F414 engine, designated RM16 in Swedish service. More thrust, better cooling, more airflow, super cruise capability, flying faster than Mach 1 without afterburners. All built on technology already proven in combat with other aircraft. In 2017, the RM-12 even demonstrated successful operation on 100% renewable biofuel. Not a lab test. A real engine. A real flight. That level of adaptability matters as environmental regulations tighten and fuel logistics become part of national security planning. Now look at Ukraine. Ukrainian pilots have flown thousands of combat missions using Western aircraft and engines. Their experience has taught them one lesson above all others: trust your engine or don't fly. When Ukrainian pilots evaluated Gripen, they didn't just look at weapons or radar. They looked at starts, throttle response, maintenance demands, and reliability in dispersed operations. They imagined taking off from highways under missile threat with minimal support, and they saw an engine built for exactly that scenario. That kind of confidence is priceless in combat. It's also priceless for a country like Canada, with vast territory, extreme weather, and long distances between bases. Gripen's engine doesn't just power an aircraft, it enables independence. The payoff, what Canada and the world must decide. This debate isn't really about Sweden versus the United States. It's about control versus dependence. It's about proven reliability versus promised upgrades. It's about whether future air forces will be built around systems that work today, or systems that might work tomorrow, if the delays stop, if the costs stabilize, and if the politics cooperate. Canada now stands at the center of that decision. Choosing the F-35 means accepting engine delays, upgrade uncertainty, and total dependence on a single supplier whose incentives don't align with performance. Choosing Gripen means prioritizing reliability, maintainability, and operational autonomy, even if it lacks some of the F-35's theoretical advantages. And theory doesn't fly missions. Engines do. Ukraine understands this. Other nations are starting to understand it. And Canada is being forced to confront it earlier than expected because politics exposed a vulnerability everyone ignored for too long. 300,000 hours, 0 failures. That number isn't marketing. It's history. So here's the real question, and this is where I want you to think, comment, and debate. If your pilots' lives depended on one engine, would you choose the one that's never failed, or the one that's still waiting to be fixed? Because once this decision is made, there is no easy way back. And the world is watching what Canada does next.